glad that you have joined the Math Teacher Education Partnership NIC Cast. And today we have Margaret Moore-Schroeder and Fred Uy, who are going to be talking and sharing a panel that will include Josh Males. And we're talking about administrators, because we know that as part of a partnership, when you're trying to make transformation efforts, you need leaders to be supporting what you're doing so that they can provide the resources and other structures that you need to make your changes. So now I will turn it over to Margaret and Fred and Josh.
All right, so am I just getting started? This is a part where I guess I wasn't too sure on. Just so we know, my purpose here is I am a curriculum specialist for Lincoln Public Schools. And I just worry about math, so what I'm talking about is what I get out of being a part of MTEP. So as you're talking with school administrators or schools in your area, sort of having a sense of what someone like me gets out of being a part of this. And I think something important to distinguish is I am a math curriculum specialist, and so my job in my sandbox is really just worrying about math in a school district of 41,000 students and 60 schools. So realizing that not all of you are going to have schools and people in the school districts around you with that sort of focus, and so you'll have to think about how that works as well as you're talking with local school districts. But what do I get out of being part of MTEP? A big part of it for me is professional growth. Going to NCTM and things like that, I get things out of it, but this is a smaller community with lots of, and the conversations just feel very different, and it's a very different experience than that sort of thing. And so a chance for me to talk with other math educators in lots of different situations is really nice. And I've grown a lot over the last few years because of it. The other thing that I get out of this are just connections, both national connections and local connections. And those national connections really just have helped me have a bigger village. So when I'm struggling with something here in Lincoln or having a conversation with people here, I can reach out and talk it through with some different people that are in different situations, have maybe experienced it in a little bit different way. Or like if I hear about something, it's like, oh, actually I've had a conversation with that person, I could reach out to them and get some more details about what's going on someplace. So that has been really nice and expanded that for me. The local connections for me are maybe more important just for this work here. It's provided me a chance to get to know some folks at some of the smaller universities and colleges around that are also preparing teachers. In Lincoln we hire. And so I've sort of known they existed in the past, but this has given me a chance to actually get to know them and have some conversations about what we're doing here in Lincoln and what sort of teachers we're looking for and what we hope to have teachers come to us with so that we can have those conversations. I will say that working with cooperating teachers is outside of my sandbox in Lincoln Public Schools. So that's one place that I would love to be able to get my hands in a little bit more, but that's something that I haven't been able to do just because of sort of bureaucratic structure of Lincoln Public Schools. But also just supporting like new teachers. I've had some great ideas come from MTEP along the way, and thinking about what professional learning for our current teachers looks like and is happening, so that what students coming from college, all the different colleges around the area, and what they're experiencing when they get to us, it's an easier transition. So that's been some conversations and some things that have happened partly because of MTEP that has been really helpful. A few things to think about as you're thinking about approaching local districts, about working within the MTEP partnership in your area, is there someone like me in the district where it is their focus is just math, or is it like most of my career where it was the high school math department were the ones in charge of the math stuff going on in the district? And so, talking to a high school principal that used to be a social studies teacher is very different than coming to me and asking me and talking to me about this experience and what we might get out of it. Same thing if you're talking with a curriculum director or superintendent. Think about those sorts of things. And supporting new teachers. Just this year is the first time that I've really had a chance to work with new teachers on a regular basis, new math teachers on a regular basis. It was sort of in the past, a general everyone was together. That might be the place, the person to really get in touch with and really think about how you work with that person. Think about supporting new math teachers that are leaving your programs if you're at a university, and as they're going to a school district. And I think the biggest thing is have some conversations and ask some questions about what they're doing in the district and what they're working on. And the chances are some of the things that you're thinking about and wanting to work on in MTEP probably line up, just because of we're all trying to head in the same direction. And then it will feel like an easier sell to get someone involved from a school district if it lines up with what they're already doing. And that step is just a little bit easier for them to go, oh, it's extra support, more people involved, more voices in this that will help us do a better job of this. So really, as you're thinking about pulling in some folks from local school districts, it's just, I think, forming a relationship and asking questions and sort of letting them know some of the good things that are happening in MTEP. So with that, I will turn it over to Margaret.
Thanks, Josh. We want to do one short logistical thing before we dive into my piece and Fred's piece, and that is we're going to do breakout rooms here in just a little bit after Fred and I talk. And so there is the feature now that you can choose your own breakout room, and some of you will be able to do that, but some of you, just for whatever reason, your institutional updates or personal updates on your computer won't allow you to do that. So if you just take a second and kind of take stock of the breakout room options we'll have, one will be talking a little bit more deeply about what Josh just shared around the K-12 perspective. And then you'll hear from Fred here in a minute about the systems perspective or working across multiple institutions, and if you want to dive deeper into that. And then I'll be leading the session on higher education institutions, kind of in the singular. So Fred is doing multiple institutions, I'm doing singular, and Josh is doing K-12. And if you don't want to decide this right this second, that's fine. I'll pop this slide up again towards at the end of Fred's talk, just to make sure we're all on the same page. But if you do know which one you want to go into now, it'd be helpful if you renamed yourself now, just in case you don't have the option to do the breakout rooms. Okay, and again, I'll pop this slide up here in a second again at the end of Fred's piece, but we will transition into, hopefully, talking about institutes of higher education. So when we talk about institutes of higher ed and support, you know, I think many of us come from an institutional perspective and we're familiar with our secondary mathematics education programs. And sometimes the barrier to transformation is not within the program, but exists outside of the program. And then also thinking about transformation on a larger scale and thinking about, well, what kind of levers and what kind of support do I need in order to get this work done? And so these are just a few kind of tips in thinking about the transformation levers, and then thinking about those support mechanisms, especially as you move into finalizing your application, looking for the letters of support, and then moving forward to implementing the work for, continuing the implementation of your work for this current academic year and into the future. So I think the biggest thing is, and I know a lot of you dug into this summer, is kind of taking a landscape of where you currently are, not just within your program, because we do this on a regular basis, but really more of kind of outside of your program. So if you think outside of your programs, who are your current supporters? You have your supporters in your core group for your network improvement community that you set up within your community or are currently setting up. But thinking outside of it, are there other secondary educators that are supporters? Are there other departments that are supporters? Are there other mathematicians outside of your closer circle of mathematicians that you regularly use and have conversations with. So really thinking about that, and then thinking about, you know, what kind of support would you need from them? Are they more of advice support? Are they helping to push and pull some levers for you? You know, what is their role in thinking about that support? Because if you have people who are supportive of your programs, you want to make sure and understand what that support is, so that when you need to use that support, you're ready to use it. And then also outside of that support group, just take a landscape of who the current change agents and innovators are at your institution and in your community. So thinking about, maybe they're not necessarily direct supporters or directly involved with your programs, but maybe they've come up with other cool things that you're interested in, or maybe they've come up with different programs, or maybe they've helped spearhead a new department or a new direction, or they've helped refine a vision statement, or they've helped with some kind of restructuring, or maybe they're just go-getters within the college or within the institution, within your department. Just thinking about those, and again, similar thing, you know, it may not be necessary that you ask or call on them currently, but understanding in who they are and what they do, so that if and when you want to call on them for advice or support, you know who they are. And then, of course, your administrators. So whether or not that's a department chair, a director of a school, a dean of a college, an associate provost, an associate vice president, whatever your institutional structure is, a chancellor, just thinking about the administrators. Don't always assume that their title means that they'll support and that they're a change agent, or that they will work with you on the change. And I say this in the nicest possible way. So really think about, in that landscape, when people do make changes and transformations at their institutions, who do people work with? What administrators come to mind in terms of helping move that work forward and support that work? Sometimes it's the departmental level. Sometimes it's the school level. Sometimes it's the associate provost level. So one example that I'll give is when we were doing our work of major transformation in the College of Education at UK back in 2010 and 2011, we were met with a lot of resistance in creating a new undergraduate certification program. And, you know, we had written support from the dean, we had written support from our department chair, but none of that mattered. What actually moved the needle was the actual written support, and then the actual support from an associate provost who was very involved in STEM work and very involved in helping to move STEM education forward at the university. And so when he helped, when he came to our group and helped us move things forward, he was able to facilitate a conversation between the departments and the department chairs and the dean in order to move things. And that we would not have been able to get things done had he not helped us move that forward. And so, and in looking at that, you know, that was not someone that would have originally come to mind as a mover and a shaker to help change things or transform things. So, you know, kind of really, again, big picture, take a step back and really take stock of, okay, you know, these are the people that I know that I can call on, or these are the people in my observations that have helped to move things forward at my institution. And then when we get down to the actual support piece, remember that support can look a lot of different ways. A support just doesn't necessarily mean a letter of support. It's the kind of the tangible things in it. Sometimes it's travel support. Travel support for this group is really important. Sometimes it can look like a course release. If you have a lot of work moving forward in terms of transforming your program, which is going to take some time for curricular developments or new courses, or, you know, maybe transforming or doing curricular transformations for your whole program, maybe some time to do that is appropriate. And then I know we've talked a lot about this with MTEP and moving forward and making sure that the recognition for your work, for the transformation work, is in your tenure and promotion dossier if necessary, or if you're at that point in your career. And then also looking at yearly performance reviews and making sure that this work is explicit and recognized in your yearly performance reviews. And finally, as you continue to move forward with your transformation work, and especially working with administrators and other change agents at your institution, always refer to your aim and your driver diagram early and often. You know, we do this work ahead of time to make sure that we stay centered within our group. And we want to make sure that we continue to refer to that in our conversations. It helps to keep everybody on the same page. It also helps to make sure that we stay focused and centered on our work, which is ultimately what is going to help drive and move our institutions and our programs forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Fred.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret. Okay, certainly it's a pleasure to hear your perspective on individual campuses. Okay, let me just introduce myself again. My name is Fred Uy, and I'm at the California State University Office of the Chancellor, where I am one of the directors there on the Educator Preparation Program. So in this session, what I'll do is that give a perspective on a system-wide effort. Okay. So whatever Margaret has said, what I'm just going to do is to echo that, but to upgrade it when it comes to multi-campus effort, because that's the one that we're trying to look for. In our system, we are 23 campuses, then only 22 offer teacher preparation program. So if we scale that to that perspective, it really is a little bit daunting, okay? Because that means whatever you have in each campus multiplied by 22. So you need to make sure that it's very clear as to what is the ask and how it's going to be presented. One of the things that I and the systems office would be requiring is that if you're going to have a project of multi-campus effort, what does it do, or how does it advance the mission of the system? Okay. What exactly does it do in terms of promoting the initiative that we currently have, or relating it to any projects that we already have? Okay. Right now, there is a system-wide call, and even a statewide and even a nationwide call in terms of increasing the number of STEM teachers. So that's something that you certainly would be able to tap on to show that this effort is something that will be able to contribute to this initiative. Okay. Another thing that you have to really highlight, and I'm speaking from the other end of the table now, is that how does this actually make the institutions or the system look? Meaning, what are the resources that it might potentially bring? Not only just resources in terms of financial or honor, but how does it put the spotlight on the campus system? Okay, how can it be, quote unquote, the PR sense of it? Okay, the publicity, because they really need to show that this effort is something that illuminates what the status and what is the initiative that the campuses are doing right now. Okay, so that's very important. And then when you present something of this proportion, it would be good to say as to how can this really show an impact, and how does this may be institutionalized later on. Okay, granted that this is maybe a length of a certain number of years, but what comes after that? So make sure that it is highlighted there. Okay, it wouldn't hurt if you present some other studies or some other projects that might be similar that already have gone through that process. Okay. Another thing that is important in coming is that it would already be helpful if you have some institutions in mind that you would want to partner, fellow campuses, because in that way we would be able to reach out on one institution's behalf. It makes it a lot easier, it makes it more central, and the process gets smoother. Okay? And one thing I have to remind is that do not be afraid or do not hesitate in terms of asking for letter support from the system, because that really makes a big say with regard to your submission. Okay. I guess the last thing that I would say is that really look into the current initiative and current situation that your campus or your system is in, particularly just like what Margaret says, just because it's a no from the current doesn't mean it is not worthy. It just has a different focus at the moment. And things change accordingly. It varies accordingly depending on the time. Okay, so just make sure that you are well supported in terms of what you're asking for. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Before we go into our breakout groups, does anyone have any kind of general questions for Josh, Fred, or I, or just for the group in general? Okay, Stephanie, I think we're ready to move into our breakout rooms.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead and open those.
So I'm not gonna do this in a great detail just because of the time. But I just kind of pulled up the outline of what's on Open Canvas and just kind of a reminder of what it is you're going to, what it is you need to submit. Note that the superscript T means that there is a template available. And now with the letters of support, Margaret and Fred, you've also created some templates. Are you going to share those? Not like templates, but some examples. I should say some example letters. Can you, I just think it'd be helpful for you to share those at some point.
I think that Fred had it in the folder already. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if we can make a link to it in the Canvas application process or something, but
Yes.
we can do that.
Yeah, we'll take.
Or we can work with you on that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so the letters of support, there's not a template, there's some examples, but I think listening to both Fred and Margaret could give you some good things to think about to what is it you want to ask for? And some people have said, who do we need to get the letters from? Well, get the letters from who you think you need them from. Whose support do you need, to kind of take Margaret's point earlier? Who's going to be helpful to you? Whose radar do you want to be on? Do you want to try to lock in some travel support? This is your chance to do that. So the letters of support, honestly, are more for you than for us. Okay, so it's not like, oh, they forgot one from the Associate Dean for Teacher Certification reject. No. If that's not someone who's important to you, don't worry about it. Pick the people who are important. If you got a letter from everyone, we would be overwhelmed. Get letters from people who you really want to lock in and have engaged. Step 1.3, that's just the one sentence letter that we need for the NSF application. So that's one person needs to do that, and it should be on your letterhead. There are templates for 2, 3, 4, and 5. You don't have to use that, but the template just kind of make sure you're addressing all the things that you need. If you did the transformation exercises this summer, you have a really good start on all of 2, 3, and probably at least the plan stage for the PDSA cycle. And the timeline, by now you might want to go back and revisit that. One reminder too with the PDSA cycle, it's due October 15th. So bear that in mind. If you haven't finished it yet, do something that you can do quickly. There's nothing about that. I give an example of one team that I talked to, and their PDSA cycle was to develop a video for recruitment. Okay, a video for recruitment that's not something you're going to get done by October 5th. You're not going to get it done by December. That's probably going to be April or May till you have that. Things like that take a long time. They take forever. So, kind of going back to the session that Marilyn did on PDSA cycles, decompose, do the shorter cycle. So maybe your first cycle is working on a script, or maybe it's figuring out who you want to feature in the video. So decompose it, go into the smaller pieces. There was a nice visual in hers of kind of in her presentation of the PDSA cycle rolling up the ramp. So think about it more like that than I'm going to jump to the top of the ramp. What is it you can do to traverse? Step 6, 6.1 is the submission of the baseline data. The program progress survey is a separate submission via Qualtrics. If you were at the Summer Institute, you probably already did that. If you were not there, or if you're adding a campus, encourage them to get that done. And to do that, they need to send me an email. The completer data survey, there's a template. It's not that hard to do if you can get your hands on the right data. And then step 6.2 requires you to say yes. So that one is pretty easy to do. So that's just kind of the overview. I'll go to the next slide and then take any questions. So here are some tips that I've kind of gleaned in talking to people. Number 1, this is a draft. Do not think, oh, we have to be done. Wherever your thinking is as of the time you submit, that's good. If you haven't made as much progress, say, on your root cause analysis, just give us what you've got, okay? You can always go back and do more later. The second point is, and I've kind of said this in a way, do what's useful for you. So these should not be like empty hoops that you have to jump through for who knows why, just because they said so. It should be something that's really going to be helpful for you. So put that frame on it. Don't try to avoid doing anything that's not helpful, that does not have value to your effort. The other thing that I've gotten a lot of questions on is, are we doing this right? Have we really defined the primary drivers correctly? And really, okay, I don't mean to be flip, but sort of who cares? Does it represent your problem space? That's the real question. Do what works for your team. Again, as you learn more, you may go back and redo it. At some point, you might say, you know what, these really aren't our primary drivers. We need to rethink it. But don't get caught up in, are these real, are we doing it all right? That doesn't matter. Most of the templates have a place for explanation. And I'll just say, this is really probably the most helpful thing. If it's like, here are the root causes, so far, this is what we're thinking about, but we know we have a lot more work to do on that. Great, that's helpful, okay? We've had some discussions, but we didn't quite come to a conclusion. This is our tentative conclusions. That's helpful. The last is just a little picky thing. If you do Google Docs, be sure that you have your permissions set right. I was reviewing some of the early submissions last night, and I was getting blocked from looking at the submission. So make sure you have your permissions correct if you do a Google Doc. Honestly, it may be easier in some cases just to download it and then upload the file, but that's completely up to you. So anything to add from other members of the team, or any questions?
Gary, this is Jan. I had a question. This might kick me out of, this might be my reject here, but I am trying to submit and I don't see where, like I have, and it might be because I don't have the right access. I can get all of the templates, and I remember for the summer, you could just upload, like I don't see where to put my, where to upload my document.
Okay.
And it might be that I don't know what I'm doing.
All right, let me check on that, and I'll check back to you. I'll check.
Okay, it
recheck
might
the
be,
permissions.
yes. Okay, great, thanks.
It may be a permissions issue because
Okay.
not everyone has access for obvious reasons.
Right, okay, so I'm the one submitting for us if I
Yeah.
can just get access. Thank you.
And I'll double check that. I'll do it
Perfect.
right after the call. And
Okay,
right
thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Gary, this is Fred. Okay,
Yes.
just one reminder, for those making requests and ads for travel and everything else, please make sure that you get that in writing, because administrators change, okay?
Right.
And then we need to make sure that there's continuity of that.
Yeah, so that's one of the real good things about the support letters. It's your chance to get some things in writing. Good point, Fred.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, or advice? I will try to do Zoom wait time, which is about 50% longer than regular wait time.
For those of you putting in travel requests in those letters, it might be worth thinking about if you want your K-12 partners to join you at meetings and things like that, to include them in that. We don't always have access to those funds.
Good point. All right, back to you for the wrap up. We're still on time, which is great.
It's perfect. So thank you all very much. We hope that it was helpful today to kind of dive deeper into those different areas of support. And if you have any questions about, especially around the support or working with your institution or community or district, then contact Josh, myself, or Fred, or any of the other members of the NIC Transform leadership team. And Gary and Wendy can always help direct the questions as well. So we thank you very much, and don't forget to fill out the survey that John just sent out, and we look forward to reading through your applications.